Welcome to my environmental studies class. This is Econ 7306. Let's start with topic number 1, Introduction to Environmental Economics. As we are all aware, economic growth and technologies have taken a toll on the environment, as if like there is a trade-off between economic growth and environmental quality. If you want to go for economic growth, definitely we have to sacrifice our environment. If we want to preserve our environmental quality, we have to reduce the economic activities. So why do we have to combine environment and economics together and make it one course? For your information, economics provide analytical tools to explain the interaction between markets and environment. Economics also explain the implications of this relationship and provide opportunities to find effective solutions for environmental problems. Let's look at the scopes of this course. It is a master level economic course. When I said economics, I'm expecting my students to know basic economic concepts and theory, such as indifferent curve, isochrones, production functions, and some mathematics. We need algebra to solve some equation. We need calculus, mainly focusing on first and second derivative, and we will also learn about optimization process using Lagrangian functions. If you have learned about microeconomics in your first semester, this course should be an easy course for you, right? Okay, the heart of environmental economics is economics of pollution control. This course is very orthodox approach in terms of its focus. It will focus on efficiency, optimality, and sustainability. If you have learned about economics, you should know the difference between allocative and technical efficiency. Let me give you one example to differentiate between these two. For instance, electricity generated using coal is more efficient compared to gas because coal is very cheap, so you will achieve minimum cost. We call it technical efficiency. However, the cost of pollution arising from coal exceeds the saving cost. So in this case, even though you are achieving technical efficiency, you are not achieving allocative efficiency, because in order for you to achieve allocative efficiency, the marginal benefit should equals to the marginal cost, right? Next, optimality. Resource allocation cannot be optimal unless it is efficient. However, efficient is not the only criteria to achieve optimality. There are many criteria to achieve optimality. Okay, the last one is sustainability. When we talk about sustainability, definitely we are taking into account the future generation into our consideration. Okay? We will also cover other topics in this course, such as environment and economy. Especially, we will look at the relationship between these two and the implications of this relationship. We will also touch on cost-benefit analysis and how to value the environmental quality. Okay? These are the topics that will be covered in this course. In week 1, we will talk about the introductions to environmental economics. In week 2, we will talk about the concept of sustainability. In week 3 and 4, we will focus on welfare economics and environment. Week 5, we will touch on the pollution control, mainly on the target. So what kind of target in environment that we want to achieve to control our pollution? In week 6, we will also talk about pollution control, but our focus in the instruments or method. What kind of instrument that we want to use to control our pollution? Week 7 and 8, in this case, it is stated that we will discuss economy-wide modeling. However, for your information, this topic is specifically focused on the agricultural economics, and this is not our concern. So in week 7, I will replace with the workshops on Stata. So how to use Stata to run our models or equation. In week 8, instead of discussing on the economy-wide modeling, we will have our midterm. In week 9 and 10, we will discuss on the international environmental problem. So in this chapter, you will be exposed with the game theory. For those who haven't learned about it, we will look at this game theory. In week 11, we will discuss or we will talk about the cost benefit analysis. And the last week, we will learn the methods to value our environment. Okay? Learning outcomes of this course. My students are expected to have an understanding of environmental economics. You should be able to use economic techniques to analyze environmental problems and assess environmental policy. When we talk about environmental problem, definitely it will have policy implication. And the last one, you should be able to develop research skill in the fields of environmental economics. In my class, feel free to jump in and ask me any question. You can always argue with me academically. Okay? In my class, I will use the textbook written by Perman et al. 2011. And the titles of the textbook is Natural Resource and Environmental Economics. So some of my students ask me, should I buy these textbooks or can I use the old version that is available in the soft copy form? So it is up to your cost benefit analysis. Well, if you think that purchasing this hard copy textbook is beneficial for you and the benefit is higher than the cost, well, go ahead. You can purchase this textbook. But if you think that, well, you can also read the soft copy and the cost is actually almost zero and you can benefit from it, well, go ahead. Okay? There are also a large number of environmental economic textbooks, so you can find one that you like and read it. Okay, I know that the marginal benefits of reading the textbooks is diminishing and the marginal cost is increasing. If you read more textbook or if you read more books, the lecture will be easier for you. So ideally, you can read before the class, and that will be the best for you so that you can hit me with your sharp argument. Okay, so if you didn't read any textbook, so you may not know what to ask me, whether you understand the contents. If you read more, it will help you to understand it better. Okay? What kind of jobs that are relevant for you if you are in this business? For your information, there is a growing demand for environmental economists because environmental problems are getting worse day by day. So there are a few sectors that needs your expertise. For instance, public sector. You can work in the Departments of Environment, in the Ministry of Energy, Science, Technology, Environment and Climate Change. We call it MESTEX. You can also work in the Ministry of Energy and Natural Resources and many other places. They need your expertise to advise them, to supervise them in conducting cost and benefit analysis, in helping them to make a right decision with regard to the environments and so on. You can also work in the private sectors, especially with regard to mining sectors, energy companies. You can also work with the consulting companies, right? And if let's say you are in academia and research sector or area, you can write a lot of research paper on the environmental problem or issues. And you can also work with the NGOs or international organization. For your information, the World Bank, United Nations are interested to hire to work with those who have the expertise in environmental economics. Okay? Why do you have to study environmental economics? There are many reasons why do you have to learn this course. Here, I just listed a few reasons. The first one, economics activities affects environmental quality. As you know, we demand so many things in our life. For instance, we need computers to do our work. We also need smartphone to communicate with our friends and etc. These goods, for your information, need to be manufactured and manufacturing process cause various types of pollution like air, land and water pollution. That's why we have to learn how to reduce the impacts of our activities on the environment. Second reasons. Pollution imposes huge costs on many. When I said many, it is not only on the human being, it can also cause to the animals and plant. Right. So the life on earth is not only belongs to human being, plants and animals deserve a decent life as well. Next, once we have damaged the environment, it will get back to us and it will threat to our future generation and affects the sustainability of our life, right? Because the pollution that we created today may not only be easily absorbed by the earth, and it will be accumulated and getting worse day by day. That's why we have this term called climate change. And the last one, our utility function also depends on the environmental amenities. If you look at the image on your right, many people are willing to spend thousands of dollars to enjoy that view. Why do you think so? Just simply because they wanted to get a peace of mind, right? So it shows that we do value the environmental amenities. So why do we have to pollute them? So we are such a very strange creatures, right? So now I would like to know what is the number one of environmental problem for you? So it depends on where you are living. If you are living outside Malaysia, so you will have different types of environmental problems or environmental concern. I know that different places will have different issues. In the case of Malaysia, we have various types of pollution that we are very worried about. For instance, we are also concerned about the waste management in Malaysia. Currently, many people in Malaysia do not know how to handle their waste management. They simply throw everything in their dustbin, and almost 90% of our waste are thrown in the landfill. And for your information, landfill cause various types of pollution. It causes groundwater pollution, air pollution, and so many types of pollution, right? So Beijing, for example, has a serious problems on air pollution. That's why they have created different types of masks to cater for their current demand. So we will discuss this question during the class time, and it can also be a good topic for your project paper. Okay? Think about it. Let's look at these two images. What is the difference between the two markets? Do they look similar or different? Well, definitely apart from their looks and color. So, can you spot any difference between these two? When I said market, definitely you have to have the demands and supply. So the first market, we are talking about smartphone. You must have the demand, means that the consumer demand for it, and the supplier will respond by providing the smartphone. While the second market, we are talking about pollution market. So there must be a demand for pollution. That's why the firm responding by producing the pollution. Okay, so what is the difference between these two? The first one, what is it? There is a price attached to the first market, to the smartphone market. When you want to purchase the smartphone, definitely you have to pay for it. After paying it, then you will get the smartphone, isn't it? How about the second market? Do you have to pay for pollution? No. So in the pollution market, it has no price. When the price is zero, people will keep polluting it, right? So why do people pollute? Definitely because it is costly for the firms to reduce their pollution. The more they try to reduce the pollution, the more they produce the good, the more expensive the cost of pollution reduction. So when you talk about coal production, okay, so in Malaysia, we are using coal because it is very cheap. If you want to change it into solar, because solar is green and very clean, it is very costly. So some people cannot afford, some companies cannot afford to change coal to solar. That's why people will keep polluting. Okay, so the second difference between these two markets is property right. Okay, the first market, when you purchase the smartphone, you pay for it. Do you have the property right? Yes, definitely you will have it because you have paid for it. So no one can do anything to your property. No one can do anything to your cell phone or smartphone. Well, definitely people can steal it, but the phone is yours. So you can sue the thief. You can do whatever because you have your property right. Okay, so when you have the property right, it will allow the market to work well because that smartphone is belongs to you. So if let's say someone do something to your property right, you have the right, you have all the help assistance to get back to protect your property right. How about the second market? Do you have the property right? If let's say you are living in this area where the industries is operating and they are polluting your clean air. Can you say that, well, this is my area, you shouldn't pollute my clean air? You cannot say that because you don't have the property right to the clean air. Okay? So once you don't have the property right, everyone can do whatever to your clean air. Okay? Can you see the difference now? Okay. Fundamental issues in economics approach to environmental problems. The first one, environmental good has no property rights. So you cannot say you own this clean air. Everyone can do whatever they like. They can pollute your clean air because you don't have your property right. Right. And on top of that, environmental good has no price tags on it. So you cannot achieve efficiency for environmental markets. And because of that, the government has to intervene to get the equilibrium. Second, role and limits of valuation in achieving efficiency. Since resources like clean air has no markets because you don't have the price values, so externalities will exist because victims have no property right to get compensation for external effects. However, absence of price doesn't mean externalities has no values. You can have positive or negative externalities, and they also have the values. So normally in this course, we will use valuation techniques to measure and to value the externalities or the environmental good. Nevertheless, these techniques are very controversial because some economists cannot accept these techniques. They think that this technique is not reliable or not relevant. But we will learn about these techniques and we will evaluate these techniques. Okay? We also have to take into account the time dimensions of economics decision. For your information, resources can be classified into two, stocks and flow resources. So what is stocks and what is flow? Stock means that our current use of the resources will affect the future availability. If we use it too much, the future generation will have shortage of these resources. For example, flora population or mineral deposit, right? And flow means that the current use of our resources will have no effects on the future availability. It means that even though we use it too much, it will have no effects on the availability of these resources in the future. For instance, like solar radiation, power of wind, flowing water, and so on. Okay, so for your information, stocks can be divided into two, renewables and non-renewable. Our main concern is normally on the non-renewable because renewable can always be renewed, or we can say that it has the capacity to grow, but it can also be depletable if we harvest it at a higher rate than their generating capacity. We call it sustainable yield in the terms of economics or environment. For the non-renewable, there is no capacity to grow except that we have the geological time scale. Okay? So when we decide something, when we make an economic decision on how to handle our resources, we have to think about its implication to the future. If we are dealing with stock, are we talking about renewables or non-renewable? Because if we manage the non-renewable stock in a high rate, in a growing rate which is not sustainable, so the future generation will suffer because of our current decision, our current uh, decision making. So we have to think, are we dealing with stock or are we dealing with flow? Are we dealing with renewable stocks? Are we dealing with non-renewable stock? Because it has a time dimension, or it has a times consequences. Okay. To ensure efficiency and optimality use of resources or stock resources, we must take into account the use at a point in time, we call it static, and patterns of use over time or dynamic dimension. Also, we have to consider substitutability and irreversibility of the stocks because it has a policy implication. If let's say depletion of resource stock is irreversible, In the case of Malaysia, we are facing a serious problems of deforestation because many firms are converting forests into palm oil plantation because palm oil plantation is very profitable. So what is the consequence of doing that? The consequence is that we are destroying the habitats of orangutan. So the the stocks the consequence of our action is irreversible and there is no close substitute. In the case of orangutan, once it is gone, it is gone. So if you have this kind of stock, it has a major implication for sustainability. So we have a high concern about the use of this kind of stocks. So when you want to use a stock, you have to think whether it has a substitute or whether it has a irreversible impact. So if you have this kind of thing, you shouldn't use this kind of stocks. Okay, another example with the case of coal in Malaysia, it is very common for firms to use coal. Coal is very cheap, right? But coal is falling under non-renewable stock resources. Okay, but should we use it? Malaysia is using it. So we have to think whether it has a substitute or it has no substitute. Okay, in the case of coal, it has a substitute, which is solar. Even though solar is expensive, but coal has a substitute. So many economists think that, well, you still can use coal because it has a substitute. Okay? If you look at the image on your right, what is the problem? Is this a perfect market? What types of market failure here? We call it externalities. So you may see air pollution or noise pollution. Obviously, we will face congestion issues. So people are sitting hours in their cars. What should we do about it? Should we tax on the ownerships of the car? If let's say our concern is on the pollution reduction, should we really tax on the car ownership or should we tax on the pollution? If we tax the car, there might be a reduction in cars, but the pollution is still there. So this is the common issues faced by our policymakers. They are trying to formulate policies, but the policies do not really improve the environmental quality or it doesn't really reduce the pollution. So should we tax on the emission? What do you think about it? Is there any policies or option that is not related to economics that we can adopt or use? How about if let's say we want to promote the use of public transport? What do you think about this kind of policies? So let me give you the examples of other countries. For instance, China and Indonesia, what they did was, if let's say you have a certain plate number, you can only drive in a certain week. So what's the problem with this kind of policy? If let's say you want to go for work every day, but your plate number only allows you to go for a few days, what should we do? It will encourage you to buy more vehicles, isn't it? So it doesn't really solve the issues of pollution. Okay, so let's see. What about if let's say we require people to use fuel efficient car? What do you think about it? If let's say you said that, okay, the policy in Malaysia encourage or enforce people to use fuel efficiency car or efficient car. Is this a good policy? So what happened is that it will encourage people to purchase more fuel efficient cars, and once they have it, they will drive more and more, and it will also cause more air pollution because people will drive on the roads a longer time because they believe that, well, this is fuel efficient car, so I can drive more. And it turned out that the air pollution is even more, isn't it? So some policy, even though the intention is very good, they wanted to reduce the pollution, but it turned out the effects is even worse. Okay, so think about this kind of policy. How to solve this kind of environmental problem? We wanted to reduce it, but it come out to be something else, isn't it? It is so hard to formulate a policy related to environment. Okay? So what do you think about carpooling? If let's say we have imposed this kind of policy, you have to have a certain number of people in a car before you want to go out. Do you think that it is a good policy? So you think that if let's say you drive the car by yourself, it will give you lots of pollution, air pollution especially. What if we limit a certain number of people, like 3 people in a car or 4 people in a car, then you can go out. Do you think it is a good policy? So we will discuss this suggestion or this option in our next class. Okay, so please get ready. I would like to express my gratitude to Paul Burke for providing some materials for this lecture. Okay,